Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? Really excited for tonight's opportunity. I have Greg Allison with us. Greg Allison is a rocket scientist. He is also a botanist, and he has been preparing for off-grid living for many years. And he also is a contractor at NASA, and he makes it very clear that he's a contractor at NASA. But I bring that up because he has a lot of intelligence, and when we talk to Greg, he's given us information that you really should listen to. I mean, he's not just anybody that talks about anything that they read on the internet. He's very well researched and extremely knowledgeable, and he's been walking the walk and talking the talk for years. So I would like to get into tonight the October surprise, the possibility of there being an event that could take place around October that would be of serious consequences if it goes down. Now, the reason we're going to talk about this, and remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is a live action role-playing game. And the reason we're talking about this is because of all of the events that have taken place already this year. It seems like for whatever reason, 2020 is the year of polarities here. And we've already dealt with a bug. We've already dealt with lockdowns. We've dealt with major protests. And if you're in a big city, it's even worse for you. I don't even want to imagine what it's like for you. So may the force be with you. But what are things we can do as a society to prepare? What can we do at a local level that can integrate with the national level, the state level, the county level, as well as the international level, and then maybe even the galactic level? We're going to talk about it. And before we get into that, I would like to recommend you check out preparewithleakproject.com. It's always good to be prepared, not scared, for short-term or mid-term food supply. If you can't get food at the store, if you can't grow your own, or if you have to have a supply from now until you can get your own food that you're growing, go to preparewithleakproject.com. They're offering specials for Leak Project listeners. It's $100 off right now, 4 weeks worth of food, breakfast, lunches, dinners, snacks, and drinks. 4 weeks worth of food, $100 off. Check it out, preparewithleakproject.com. While supplies last, free shipping. All right, let's get into this. Have you heard the saying Murphy's Law? Have you heard that, Greg?
Oh, yeah. Murphy rules, and Murphy's, I use some colorful language for him, but I won't do that right now.
Well, have you, yeah, be careful. Have you heard that Murphy's also an optimist?
Ah, yes, I've heard you say that, actually.
Yeah, so Murphy's an optimist, and if you think about it, if you have it, you're less likely to need it. If you don't have it, you're probably going to need it. Anyway, let's get into this, man. I mean, I have so many great ideas I want to share with you, Greg, and I know that you have a lot of ideas you'd like to share with me. So let's bounce these ideas off each other back and forth, and maybe we can create this in the universe. I've already got some great ideas. You go first because I've been talking for 5 minutes. And, dude, you look awesome. ZZ Top's got nothing on you.
Dude, I sure look awesome. I got the shirt and the hat from you.
Well, you don't need that, bro. Yo, man, that's a good-looking shirt. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
See, if you look under my locks, you'll see a Leak Project sign.
You are protected.
There you go, protected. And for our buddy Diamond, Oppenheimer Ranch Project. See that? I didn't get the hat from you.
That's another guy that walks the walk and talks the talk.
Amen, amen. So he's doing some of the stuff that we can be talking about here. He's on his way, and several of us are. So, you know, this has been a year that's been a roller coaster. I even did a video about, you know, the times coming to 2020s, and boy, it sure hasn't waited around. It's not slacked off at all. It's taken off, and it's nonstop. It's been one shoe after another shoe dropping. Rex, I feel like we're in the eye of the storm. I really do. I feel like we've had the first wave hit us in terms of a bug and lockdowns and things like that, and then protest. But they all just came at once. And now we still have a bug. There's still protest pressure, but I think the people are taking a regrouping and relaxing. But I'm expecting it to come back. Anytime something relaxes, it comes back. In a storm, you've got the eye. So it's natural you'd have these kind of things. But I also think there's other forcing functions that can make things a lot worse. For one, we got elections coming up. And there are people that would like to play that and game it any way they can. Whatever you believe about it, will you believe it is or isn't, or were you on left or right? When it comes to you surviving, that's almost, it is material, but when it comes to you surviving, you need to know that you need to prep. You've got to get ready, be prepared, not scared. But more than that, I've been saying for a long time that the lone survivor, the lone prepper, is going to be very hard put to make it through. The lone prepper is going to have no one to have his back. When you break a leg, you're in trouble. When you got to go to sleep, you're in trouble. Sooner or later, you got to sleep. And when it's just you against the mobs and the gangs and whoever's coming in your door, you know, you got to be right every time. And, you know, it just takes once to be a little bit off. You might be the best in the West with spit wads, but hey, it just takes one time that you're off the spit wad game, and guess what? Your game might be over.
Let me jump in on that because, like you said, that's extremely important to have a group or a network of people that are all working together and watching out for each other. And I also think it's important to, especially if you're going to be in a small community or if you are by yourself, that find a way to be in a situation that people aren't going to notice you as much. I mean, don't be noticeable. Don't be in an area that's going to be off of main roads, and find a way where you can fit in with the environment. So what would that take? Do some research on that with the environment. But with that being said, I think we should talk now about the communities, right? Let's talk about micro communities and what we can do, what you can do as an individual, as well as with your neighbors and your friends and your family and people around the world as well. This is the first thing that I thought to myself. Last night I was in bed and I was going to sleep, and as I'm going to sleep, I'm thinking about these possibilities of having a community that is what we've been talking about, right? That's you're buying local, you're producing more than you're consuming, you're offering trade with other groups. And with that being said, I thought to myself, well, we could go out and buy a town like the one in Georgia that's for sale for about the price of a townhouse in San Francisco. It's an entire town with buildings, and it's in Georgia. Or I remember last year, Diamond, myself, and Top Knot went and looked at this property that's about an hour from here, actually even less than an hour, but it's in southern Colorado, and it had, was it 35 acres? So maybe it was more than that. It didn't have a whole lot of acreage, but it did have several buildings that were well built, that had really nice kitchens, and it was enough land with enough buildings that you could have, I think, a micro community of maybe 25 people there comfortably. And if you did that, you could also in this micro community have a mining network to produce cryptocurrencies, like mine cryptocurrencies, and then find a way to get everything off grid so you could produce more energy than you were consuming, and then maybe even offer that back to the grid. But I'm seeing about $2 million. We could buy enough land with enough buildings, anywhere from 10 people up to that place in Georgia, which could be maybe 120 people, 200 people. And then I would like to talk to you more about some thoughts that I had as well. But two more thoughts. One more thought. If we don't buy that land, if we don't get the funds to purchase that land and retrofit it and do this idea that we've talked about, then why not figure out a way on a local level, become mayor and sheriff? Because you become mayor and sheriff, you get elected in, and then you could turn that town into a community like we've been talking about, without having to have the funds to purchase an entire town or 100 acres. What are your thoughts?
So what Rex is talking about here is the opportunity to go in a place, and once you're in charge of the municipal systems, you apply for the grants for urban renewal or whatever programs are available, and use that. And it could be energy grants. You know, I've got this concept for the habitat. I can pull it up in a minute if you'll let me share it shortly. That I've talked about on here before. A habitat, which is a home that you can live in, make a living out of, grow almost all your food out of it at this one home, so you don't have to travel around for work. And it's also pretty much a tornado proof, earthquake proof to a large degree. It would be resistant to radiation, all kind of mayhem, and it would be a fortress among other things. It would be very defensible. And you could even build these together. You could build a community based on these, or you could retrofit existing buildings to take in the design principles of this home, especially if you got a courtyard, or if you can set a courtyard up in a yard or something like that. So you could do a lot with this home concept that I have. And if, like I say, if we take a town or someplace like that, we could retrofit and make that town more resilient. In a home like this, your utility cost would drop to almost zero. In fact, you can put enough solar in it that you can make it zero. Absolutely. The concepts that I've got for how to operate this. So you get rid of your utilities, you're already off grid. If you want to produce energy and put it in the grid, I keep that as a separate system because I wouldn't want an EMP or a coronal mass ejection putting back energy into the system and frying it. So you've got a lot of security advantages to being off the grid. You could collect rainwater, even if you're in a desert, if you need to for your water supply, or use whatever other sources are available. Some places have limitations on collection of rainwater, so which is strange, but there are ways to get around that. And use
They're
other
doing that
water.
because they love you, Greg. They just want to protect you from the rainwater.
Yes, that's scary rainwater.
You got to really be careful for the rainwater.
Well, we can recycle whatever water we get through many steps and make the most use of it in any way that we want to use it. So there's still advantages that we can take here. And most places allow you to collect rainwater.
Right. I think there's a place there's a city in Oregon and certain areas that don't allow it, but I think there's definitely plenty of places that we can look at that do offer that. Now, I do want to jump in also because I'm thinking to myself, again, we want to go into before we talk too much about setting up and establishing this, what could take place in October, right? So here's some things that I see are possible just because of the way the media is pushing certain headlines and like this trickle effect. Could there be some type of electromagnetic event, whether natural or artificial, that could cause a disruption in the electrical grid and the system enough to where people can't get money out of the banks, to where the gas stations, you can't pump gas, and to where the nuclear reactors, which require electricity to stay cool, are we going to have all of this just immediately taken care of because something could go down in a very short time? Could that happen in October? Could it be pre-planned, or could it just be it is what it is? I don't know, but I think we need to talk about that because it seems like the media is really pushing it.
Rex, that could happen at any time, from natural events from the sun, or maybe someone's planned it, and there could be many players that could be involved in that, from terrorist groups to deep state, maybe to a lot of people say, well, when I've been talking about hardening the grid, a lot of people say, well, Greg, it's not going to be them, it's not going to be those, it's going to be the deep state that's going to do it. I would submit to you that all the deep state has to do it is do nothing at all. Just keep doing what they're doing and not harden our grid, and sooner or later it's going to go down anyway. Now, if they want to have it happen at a certain time, that might be a little different. But there are certainly other players in many areas of the world that have it in their doctrine that if they get in conflict with us, that they would do just that. And it is in the doctrine of Iran. It is in the doctrine. Now, it may be questionable whether they do or do not have that capability out of Iran. But the Iranians do have the capability to go in and hack, cyber attack, to go in with direct ballistic attacks like AK-47s against substations, like happened at Metcalf Station in San Jose area. They have the capacity to, now the countries that we know that have the capacity and technology of the EMP superweapons, per Soviet generals having confided this when the wall fell, are the nations of so I'm going to throw my fingers total number of nations that we're really worried about. North Korea has the EMP superweapon. China has long had that technology. And of course, Russia originated it. And these EMP superweapons, Rex, are capable of, according to congressional testimony and the congressional record, so I'm not citing classified information here. It was recorded in 2008 in congressional record when a former NASA administrator, who was acting administrator for NASA at one time, who happens to be principally a Soviet weapons expert, William Graham, Dr. William Graham, got it from the Soviet generals themselves. And he is a physicist, by the way. William Graham is a physicist who specializes in EMP of all things. He found out that they had the capacity for a 200,000 volt per meter EMP superweapon, which is 4 times more powerful than the hardening standard of our military facilities, which means our ICBMs and all these things that you would counteract and attack if they hit you with would be fried. They would be inoperable for most, for all intent and purposes. So we would be in a real deep pickle if somebody went out and hit us with that at first. And as you know, I did have a video from Miss Stacy Savicki of a Sustainable Stewards channel, and she had this vision, Rex, that we would get 2 missiles coming at us sometime around December. Now, that's possible. It's also possible something can happen earlier, like as you suggest, in October. If the powers that be don't like the direction that things are heading in this country, politically or otherwise, they might pull any plug or any stop. I'm expecting more, perhaps far more intense writing than what we've seen, or other things may come into play. It could get, the old Chinese proverbial curse was, may you live in interesting times. Our time is already pretty darn interesting this year, and they could get a lot more so. So the key thing for us is, one, I've been pushing to harden the grid. I've got I just did this video, and please check it out on my channel, with Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. It went for 2.5 hours. It's a long video, but it is thoroughly jam-packed with critical information about the threat, and toward the end, things that we can do about it. And if you look at the links below that video, I have how to contact Congress. I've got a link to his book. This book has sample letters in it to write and action steps that you can take for contacting your representatives. You can contact your public services commissioners. And there's a lot of steps that you can take in those areas. Also, you can find maybe somewhere on my channel where I had an interview with Command Sergeant Major Mike Mabey, who wrote this book, Civil Defense for a Community or a City. And he's got a lot of actions he's taken. There's links below that video. So, I don't sit here and talk about, well, just buy more beans and bullets. I'm here to tell you other things you can do to help prevent these things from taking place. Now, the nature of the political strife in this country are a whole different matter. One of these reasons I'm wearing these glasses is I did a video on rose-colored glasses. I was talking and appealing to people to try to understand the other side so you could reach out to them more effectively, and maybe we can diffuse some of the tension that's in our society. You won't take down the leadership of either side in tension, but if you can get a lot of the people in this country to say, man, it ain't worth it all. This is crazy for us to be fighting each other like this. If we can diffuse this tension, our outcome will be better in the end. I also believe that we can pray and meditate ourselves into a better outcome. But all that said, we still have to prepare. I say hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. But in the course of preparing, and I do cover videos on eating from the wild, I cover videos on gardening. These are things you need to know to prepare to survive. They're critical skills. Everyone needs to grow a garden. But we also need to not just be lone preppers. We need to have each other's backs. And I've done some videos on just that, on the need for communities. And I tell a story about me and my best friend fighting wasps and how we had each other's back. And we should have died that day, but we didn't. We're crazy young boys. And I sent out this email. I tell people to email me at this email, hal5space@AOL.com. I used to use this for one of my rocket clubs, HAL5, the Huntsville, Alabama L5 Society, but I don't use this for anything else right now. So this is the email that's solely being used to collect data for tribes. I've got a volunteer who's pulling this together and building up a spreadsheet. Last week she's been involved in some other things, but she'll get right back on this. She's just wrapping that up. So some people are saying, well, I hadn't heard from you yet, but go ahead.
Now on that note, you also are wanting it to be where, like we were talking earlier, if somebody is in Georgia or if somebody's in British Columbia, that they can establish that position where they're at. So it's not like they have to get up and travel somewhere. So before anybody goes, oh man, that sounds like it's a cult, man. Well, guess what? They're staying there. If they want to move, it's totally up to them, but it has nothing to do with, come on, wear these Nike shoes. They're all white colors. You all wear the same color Nike shoes every day. No. This is independence. We're talking about independence here and bringing things back to a local level.
Every tribe every tribe would be individualistic, kind of like all the states were in the original colonies when it became the United States. Everyone would have their own personality, basically, and they'll be dominated, of course, by the leaderships and the property owners where these things are formed. A lot of people have property. They want people there with them to have their back, so they see the advantage in not being by themselves to protect their property. They want company, and so there's a lot of people that would entertain people coming into the organization. Now they're going to have to vet these people to make sure they're not sociopaths or psychopaths, and they can live and work with them. But what we're doing is we're collecting information from people. We want to know essentially where you're at, just so we can know what area you're in, so we can figure out, what kind of groups you might go with best. We're asked, are you a property owner, and are you willing to host a tribe? You may or may not be. We ask if you want to be a tribe leader. Then we ask skill sets, so we can, try to assess if there's some critical skills that's missed in one area, and if someone might be willing to relocate. That's another good question. Are you willing to relocate? You need to stay where you're at. Some people want to get out of the place they're in. I've been told that by some people. A lot of people want to stay there. Some people have preferences to go to other areas of the country. So it's going to depend on the individuals. And, if there's some tribe leader that wants to be a tribe, we'll notify them, the individuals that's in their area that seem like good candidates for them. They get to vet them, but also the person joining needs to vet where they're going into. They got to make sure they're comfortable with the people, the organization. I've got a group here, and I've got a tribe in Arizona. And you've got to, one, determine, do these people have a good heart? I mean, that's one of the most important things. And secondly, are they willing to work really hard? Because in a survival situation, it's not you work 8 hours and then you sit back and twiddle your thumbs or play pinochle or something. I don't want you to do without your electronics. We used to play Mummy Pig as a kid, or you can always find something to do. But you don't have time for that kind of stuff. You're working, you're scrapping. See the videos of my dad. He said they had to scratch for a living, and literally they had, maybe 2 sets of clothes. They got a new pair of shoes in the fall, and they worked all day and night so they could go to the store and buy a little sugar and tobacco and flour, sometimes some cloth to make clothes with. And that was about it, Rex. That was the extent of their luxuries. They worked so hard for it.
I can't even imagine going back to your father's time or the generations before that. Out here in Colorado, when I have an opportunity to travel to places like Creed or even higher elevation, sometimes it'll be 11,000 plus, and there's these mines there, and there's this equipment that weighs thousands of pounds, and they got the equipment there by horse, and I'm thinking to myself, they were working out there in the snow. And in today's time, and you're not going out there unless you got a snowmobile, and they're out there just working extremely hard. So certainly the time we live in now, we live in a wonderful time. And I'm hoping that we can continue to create enough positive energy and higher vibrations to where it'll offset the darkness. And we can certainly see on the horizon, the media is pushing this dark ecstasy agenda, and it's division. They use baiting tactics on the headlines. And if you start to understand how the media works, and you realize 5 corporations control over 90% of the media, and you realize those 5 corporations have specific agendas, and they want you to be specific oppositions, or they want you to play certain chess pieces as a pawn for them. So let's wake up, folks, and realize that they love us so much. Let's realize that. Oh, don't you love the way I put it? Isn't it brilliant? Probably not. It makes no sense. Like, Rex,
well, look, no,
you're not making any sense, man.
Dude, they're all intertwined. They're like this. All these organizations, they may be different organizations, but they're highly intertwined. They share directors, they're boards of directors, they're people rotate in and out and around through each other. They're so intertwined and incestuous that's not funny. They're not independent. I mean, for Pete's sake, look at the videos, or watching your local news and they're saying something, you think they're really telling you something, but then watch where they recorded all the different local stations across the country, like 40 stations. Everybody's verbatim saying exactly without deviation the same thing, blah, 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 blah.
And that was supposed to be the conservative news.
Yeah.
That wasn't even the left side. I mean, that was the right. That was the, people like, oh man, conservative news or something. No, I mean, both of them are controlled opposition. I mean, just look at it. It's a speech. It's a script. Now, with
A
that being
script.
said, what's that?
Yes, it's a script. It's a script. It's, you know, so, and they don't deviate from it. They read it right off the teleprompter. It's all there on the teleprompter. Now, there might be a little local story that they will say a little something about, but they still do it within parameters. There's parameters they have to stay inside of. And, you know, social media it tries to force people closer and closer to that too. So it's more difficult when they got so many independent creators, but that's their objective, is to keep it all on script.
Well, you know, and I just want to say also that when somebody takes the mainstream agenda and comes up with their own twist, but kind of adds fuel to the fire, then you're not doing any favors to anybody. I mean, let's look at the root of the problem. And if the media is pushing something, let's find out why instead of making it worse. I think that's important. We got to use cognition. We've got to use common sense. We've got to look at as many variables as possible, because a lot of times these two extremes, it's somewhere in the middle. And I just wanted to point out too, like what Greg is talking about. I didn't even know what he just said about these, you know, he's sending out getting information from people for tribes and stuff like that. So I don't have anything to do with that. That's Greg's project. However, I would like to talk about if I was to have a micro community, what it would look like and how we could use it as a blueprint, because Greg and I have been talking about a lot of great ideas. And I just want to give an example. I'm looking at this property right now on eBay. It's this Kansas missile silo that's been retrofitted, and it's got all this computer equipment, and it's huge, and it's all this space. And I'm thinking something like that, not necessarily that one, but actually that would probably be pretty good. It was $4 million to build in 1960, plus all the equipment they've got in there. And it's only $500,000 for what it is. But something like that could be an awesome chunk to this network. You take something like that, and if you could produce enough energy from solar and wind and maybe thermal to run the machines to mine the cryptos, that's a big piece. And then if we could figure out a way to put these communities into living trusts, turn them into corporations, put them in living trusts. And I don't know what the thing is, if you started a religion, I know that there's a lot of benefits if you start a religion, but then you have to be careful, because if you do start a religion, then that's when somebody could say, oh, you started a cult. So is it worth the benefits versus the public eye and what people, you know, have to say about it? What do you think about that, Greg?
We started an open source religion.
Brilliant.
An open source religion, so we're not dictating any specific dogma other than have a good heart, pray, and meditate. We don't care where you're from, really what your core beliefs are, just that you pray, meditate, and have a good heart. And, you know, then people can debate amongst themselves, and maybe they'll reach some consensus, but open source and have it as a, you know, pretty much a democratic type of, you know, organization with deacons or whatever would be required to orchestrate that. But an open source religion is kind of like and look at it from a standpoint of questioning things and just asking questions and praying and meditating to have a better future without any. Look, my tribe here has a Jewish member. We have pagan members. We have Christian members. I mean, very conservative Christian members. We have Seventh-day Adventists, which is another form of Christianity. And I've got another candidate for the tribe who's Muslim. Try that. Muslim, Jew, Christian, pagan. What a combination.
Now, if you can all get along in a small community, that's awesome. That's what I'm talking about.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Why not?
Yes.
Why not?
Why not, man? That would change things up a bit.
Yeah. So that could be the model for people to follow. And, you know, race is not an issue. I don't care what color you are. I care not that. You know, I have a multiracial family. Some people say I have friends that are this, that. No, I have family that's Black and Mexican. So it's, you know, it's just the way it is. And it's a beautiful thing to me. But interestingly, you know, a lot of people might hear that and they would be kind of shocked to hear that I'm something of a conservative libertarian. But, you know, people
it's all about
just
labels, man. It's all about labels, right?
That's right. That's right. And I used to like to shock my Yankee friends and tease them about being Yankee all the time. And then they discover I was married to a black woman, and they just couldn't compute him. When they go, It
But
was
you've got a
the rug up
beard,
under.
man. You've got a long beard. No,
So
it's just ridiculous. You know, I got a joke to say real quick. This is
I like to shatter people's worldviews. You know,
good.
people get these little
Good.
conceptions of how everything is, and it's funny just to build them up on it and then just pull the rug out from under and watch it shatter into shards.
So I appreciate this, you know, this mindset of let's look at the qualities in everybody. Let's look at what somebody can do to help themselves, to help others, and then we can work together and bring everybody up. That's a win-win.
Wear other people's rose-colored glasses. Try to understand where they're coming from. Well, you know, everybody comes from something, somewhere, a set of beliefs and thoughts. They build a worldview around it, and be it right or wrong, they have a worldview. That's where they proceed from. If you know from whence they come, then you can understand how to communicate with them far better. Now, some are going to be difficult to communicate with anyway because they're just so far over into it and some will never deviate from that. They're so deeply ingrained into it. But a lot of people you can pull around to other ways of thinking. I have totally transformed in my life from the way I thought when I was in high school to the way I think now. It was a 180-degree switch. And, you know, I've had, you know, ups and downs along the way. It's called learning. It's called evolving and growing up and gaining wisdom. You've got to be, in my opinion, you got to be flexible. You got to be willing to ask questions and take in the truth and be willing to change your worldview. If you're wrong, you've got to question things, question yourself. And that's a good way to grow to maturity, to true maturity, to gain true wisdom. If you're so locked into something, you can't see anything. You're blind. That's why it helps you to take off your rose-colored glasses, to take a look at them, ask yourself questions about yourself, and then look at the other person and put theirs on and try to understand the world as they see it. Now, you may not agree with it, and in the end, if there's, you know, riots in the street that are coming to burn your house down, I don't care who you are and who's coming to burn your house, you need to defend your home. So I'll stand up for that any day. Anybody and everybody has the right to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. People do have the right to take care of themselves. And on that note, let's get back into the community. Let's talk about this. So I want to go back to this property that's a couple $1 million as an example. That it's got a large lodge, and I think that lodge had approximately 20 rooms in it, somewhere around there. So it had a huge kitchen in it, commercial kitchen. And then there was a couple other buildings that were duplexes, and I think it was on between 35 and 50 acres. So, and the location that it's at, you could take something like that, and if you could figure out a way to get people to come out there and you could do tours, right? So people could come out to that location. You could take them on tours, kayaking tours. You could take them on cross-country skiing tours. You could take them on petroglyph tours. You could take them on paranormal tours because there's a lot of paranormal stuff. But then also, you could have a laboratory. You'd want to have a laboratory where you're working on cutting edge technologies. Maybe you could even take Tesla's book, where all of his patents and stuff, you know, and inventions that he's working on, that at least are available to the public, and figure out maybe stuff that isn't available to the public, and duplicate experiments like that. Take what's already available and find people that are just really smart, but they don't want to be stuck in a university that's filled with the hive mindset. They kind of want to be independent. They want to be in a high elevation with nature, but they also want to learn. And then with the internet, and then see, I think in the future, I think that if these communities, if there's schools in these communities, then there needs to be classes where the students are required to help grow the food that they eat, because it will teach them a beautiful lesson in life skills. And they're also probably going to eat healthier, right? And they're going to feel good about it. And so we need to incorporate more life skills as well. But to go back to this one location, and I'm just thinking something, you know, for the future. And Doc Rand brought that up the other day, and I just thought that was a really good idea. I think he's working on stuff like that. And Kristen was even saying there's schools now that are doing something similar. But I think that would be, you know, because the education system, Greg, that's so essential, man. I mean, there's a group of people that I see that topple nations and manipulate generations, entire generations. And I don't want to get too deep into that because I want to focus on these communities. So I brought up a couple ideas.
Imagine if you had a school that enticed students to learn, that made learning exciting, to find out about what makes things work, to find out how things grow, what biology is, to concentrate on what math really means. What does, I've known people who have PhDs in physics who don't understand the basic principles of the terms and the equations because they've studied the equations so much they don't relate it to the real world around us. So, let the kids get their hands dirty to see what it really is. I mean, that's the way you really learn. Make it exciting. Don't make it a monotonous, boring, rote memory thing. I hated that when I was in school. I rebelled against that when I was in grade school. I hated rote memorization. I thought I was being tortured. So why are you making me do this over and 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 over again? Of course, when they would punish you, they'd have you write, I will not do this like 50 or 100 times. It's like, this is the same thing I did all day anyway. What's different?
Robot punishment, robot non-punishment.
So exactly. So we got to be more creative and let the kids be creative because creativity and thinking, we need to teach them to think. They don't want you to think anymore. That is the wrong thing. That's what the one thing we need to teach is kids to think. When you challenge kids with something and make it fun, then they will really step up to it. And in terms of if you got to do some rote memorization, turn it into poetry or songs. Kids will get it. And you can remember songs. You can remember tunes like nothing. There are ways and techniques to make the education process go far faster, far better. The kids learn far more. They enjoy it a lot more. And they'll look forward to school. And they won't be so antisocial because they're having so much fun with it. And we really need to, as a society, look at how we're structured. Now, see, one of the concepts for my habitat is a home you can live in and make a living out of. You can live anywhere in the world and make a living from this home. So you won't have to go around and chase jobs. I think one of the problems in our society today, Rex, is that families have had to leave their areas and chase jobs all over the country. Now, if you want to do that, you should be free to do that, but you shouldn't have to do it. And if you can, if you got to do like an administrative job, most of that you can telework today. I'm teleworking right now. And I think that's one of the lessons that is being taught and learned through this thing that's going around is that that's a more potential than what a lot of people realize. And I think that's a good thing. So that part of it, I think we can use that in the future going forward because I really believe if we can have people staying in one place more, you form communities. I mean, real communities like I knew when I was growing up. When I was growing up, Rex, the neighbors were like family. I mean, really and truly, you were part of their family. And we took care of each other. I mean, neighbors from way back. And the people in the community where I grew up had all immigrated from another community in Georgia. And they've been coming over for generations. They knew each other from back then. These people were connected. They were intimate with each other. And they had some really strong bonds. They knew each other. They took care of each other. It's nothing like today where you don't even know your next door neighbor. It was meaningful. It had context. And there, back then, your extended family was around, your aunts, your uncles, your grandma, your grandpa. You didn't move away from that. So when I was a kid, we took guns to school. That was just common. Nobody even thought anything about it. I even took a gun in the class for show and tell. It was a muzzle loader, and I was dressed up like a mountain man, but it was all, and I had a cap and ball revolver on my hip, and that was the same kind of revolver that was used in the war betwixt the states. It was, this was all functional stuff, but nobody even thought anything about it. It was just, all the classes wanted to know all about it, and they thought it was kind of funny. But the thing is that nobody in those days would have thought to done anything crazy like run around shooting people in school. It wouldn't even occur to you. I mean, if you got mad at somebody, you didn't pull a gun out, you pulled out your fist. You wouldn't even think of doing something like they do today. But there's many reasons for that. One is because you were raised in a family, you had better morals. You were taught things. Two, you had extended family. You might be mad at mom or dad, and that might take away a lot of your grounding, but you would worry, what would grandma, what would aunt so-and-so? There was always somebody in your family or a neighbor you would not want to disappoint. You would not want this because you loved them so much, because you had that love, you had that extended family, you had that community. You loved them so much you would not disappoint them by doing something crazy. That was the biggest stop from people doing something crazy you could ever imagine. And finally, the third thing was, if you weren't that crazy, everybody else had guns too. So, you wouldn't get far. So, you just didn't have in that day and age what's going on today. It did not happen. Even though everybody had guns, it didn't happen. No, you didn't even think about it. No, nobody felt threatened that everybody had a shotgun in the back window of the truck. Eventually, people quit putting them there because we got robbery going on due to drugs and people were stealing guns. That was the biggest reason that kind of went away at first. It wasn't any kind of school policies or anything like that back in that day. And we're talking in the 70s. And I believe it was that way up through at least the beginning of the 80s, but it started to change in the 80s. But things, if we have a community, the reason I'm not making that as a point about, having guns, the point is community. The point is the power of community, the power of family, the power of neighbors, is that you don't want to do something stupid. You're not going to disappoint people. And you don't have to go for, the kids don't have to go join some gang to find affirmation in their life because mama is the only parent in the family and mama or dad is working, 10, 12 hours a day just to put grub on the table and to keep things moving, which is what's happening to many families. The kids are left by themselves or left to be raised by the wolves. The only interaction they get is through, their social media or each other. And a lot of times, if they're not like a super popper, they will find themselves going to gangs and getting a lot of negative influence in their life. Or they get since they're not getting the kind of upbringing that grounded families can offer their kids, the school system is what's programming them. That's all. The only guidance they get is what's coming through the school system, and they have no other foundation other than that. So they don't have the foundation. They are free floating and very susceptible to being manipulated by powers that want to manipulate them in any way they want to, and they will start feeding them stuff, and they don't know anything else. They're going to start. You feed them the same stuff over and over and over, and you got several people feeding that, and you got the main lamestream media and other things feeding this to them. Sooner or later, it's like hypnosis. If you go back to the story of Jacob in the Bible, Abraham, his brothers sold him off, and they thought he was dead. No, it was Jacob in the coat of many colors. They thought he was dead because they had told that story so many times they forgot that they sold him off.
So let's go back to the community. Let's stay focused here. We go to a community that you're talking about family values, and that's extremely important. And it's extremely important to spend time with the family. And like you said, when you've got one family member or both family members, or both parents, you've got that are working all the time, and the kid doesn't really have, or the kids don't really have much of a structure. I get it. And I think most people see that. So if you can work closer to home and spend more time with the family, that's great. But what do we do to make that a reality? Because you know what? Kids nowadays, that's not important to them. Most of them, they'd rather play on their phone. They'd rather, talk to their friends on the social media. So because that's the way generations are, dude. And we got to face that. That's the reality of the matter.
Well, they don't know anything else right now. They don't know how those bonds are and how good they can be and how important they would learn that in time. It will take time for that to start creeping back into the culture, and maybe the phone time needs to be restricted. But we spoil our kids today, and that's one of our problems. Is that you take a gardener like me. We know that if we have a plant and we raise it in a greenhouse, we have to harden it off before we can put it out in the field or the garden, or it will die. It will get beaten down by the winds and rain. And so you introduce it gently into like some kind of environment halfway between the greenhouse and outdoors. I do that. And kids really need the same thing before they get sent out into the world, or they're not ready for it. They're not prepared. And what we've done is we've taken a bunch of kids and we sent them through an education system that's filled their heads full of muck that has nothing to do with the real world. And then we throw them out in the real world, and they get frustrated because they don't know how to deal with it. And then they get angry at everyone, and that's not a pretty picture.
You're right. Let me bring something up, because remember when we were talking earlier today, we were having a great conversation on the phone, and we were saying, hey, look at all the situations that are playing out right now in these big cities and the way people are acting. And it's almost like Rome was before Rome fell, right? So is it this cyclical thing that the MFers, the money funders, know about, so they're just playing the game until it happens? Or do they propagate it to keep control, or a combination of the two? Regardless, we're seeing it right now.
Okay, look at this. What happens in like a family, like a royal family, when the kids get spoiled, after so many successive generations, the royal family falls apart. They just can't keep control of things. They might have had a founder that was really strong, or in a rich dynasty where a dad starts he's a multi-billionaire, but his grandkids just lose it all. Somewhere down the line, things fall apart. And the same thing happens in nations and civilizations, I think, from what I've seen, because before Rome fell, they got very opulent, and they got spoiled and lazy in a lot of ways. You know, they worked hard compared to us today, but relatively speaking, they were very complacent, very spoiled, and they just lost their hardness, what they needed to survive as a society. You find that this may be what happened to Mayan civilization. We like to try to say, well, it was resources. I'm sure if somebody goes back to our civilization, and if the fall or winter this year, our cities are all burnt down, they're going to go back and say, well, they ran out of, it happened because they ran out of grain, they ran out of this, they were stretching the environment. Just look at their fields. That's how we look at the Mayans today. And they may be completely wrong. It might have been a societal rot that occurs over time in every society. That might have been what really happened in Easter Island. They reached a high level, a pinnacle, and we said, well, they cut down all their trees. Is that really what did them in? We don't know that. That's conjecture. But we see a pattern all over the world of societies reaching a certain point, and then they just collapse, and they seemingly do it from within. Now, it could be that they run out of resources. They're like the chicken in the egg that consumes everything inside the egg and never breaks out to go eat the grain outside. Which is why we need to go into space anyway. And develop better ways of living here. We can be totally sufficient and live an opulent life for everybody on Earth, with no one living in poverty, and have almost zero impact on the environment, with a max population projected by the UN if you live in habitats similar to what I'm talking about, Rex.
And let's get into that then. So let's go back to that place in Georgia, right?
Yeah.
How would you turn that town in Georgia that was for sale, I don't know if it still is, how would you turn that into a completely self-efficient community?
Excuse me. Well,
it's an anti-COVID cough, just so you know, folks.
I'm cool. I've been tested. I'm negative. So
they put nanobots in you, bro. Just joke. I'm joking. Or am I?
All right. So Rex,
I'm muting myself right now, Greg.
Look, we could go into any community, and like that one, that community has certain attributes. It's got a big theater. It's got this huge, beautiful inn home, make a great B&B. It's in fact, I've had dreams years ago that looked just like that house, you know, and I looked at that place and I thought, really? Wow, that was spooky to me. And my first time there, when I was there, actually, Rex, I was recording, and I played them later. I heard voices, so I went back. You know, I've been to that place, I don't know, 2 or 3 times now, and I actually went back to look to see if I could recapture those voices, and it didn't happen. But that was really spooky. Now, it's the downtown is what's being sold. The city hall is still there, and there's still a business next to it, and there's homes around outside the main core of the city. So it is a community, and it's got an extended community around it. But there's acreage there. There's a syrup mill. There's a shop. where you can make things. There's no cotton warehouse, not a big one, but it's big enough. It's by the railroad tracks. It's got the big theater. It's got a big restaurant. So it might be possible to turn it into an art center and have arts things happening there and entertainment. To do movies, you could you could do old Southern movies in that big mansion house. You could do just all kind of things. You could do westerns there, actually, especially that theater and surrounded about that. You could do many different things along the entertainment spectrum. You could really have an art center there, but that could be one of the pulls. But you could also create greenhouses and grow things and send them up to places like Macon, Georgia, which is the closest major metropolitan area where there's a lot of people that would, be customers for things you could grow to eat. And you could do other enterprises like you suggested. You could mine Bitcoin. You could do, we could have a laboratory. I do have a certain set.
Let me jump in on the laboratory. Let me jump in on that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up and I forgot, and then I was going to ask again. So we get a laboratory with 3D printers. We have blueprints for car parts, for machine parts, for anything that you might need to order that we think could be beneficial. We have the blueprints for it, and we have people that design blueprints for these 3D printers, and we get 3D printers that are not only biological 3D printers where we could start printing up organs eventually or something like that, but also we have these technological printers as well that can do machine type work with metals, etc. But yeah, let's talk about the laboratory stuff. I just wanted to throw that in there. Your thoughts?
Oh, by the way, I've got some contacts here that are doing 3D printers to make actually farm bots actually that could actually work your garden and things like that. So
that's cool.
That's kind of entertaining. So there's also you can make all kind of parts. And one of the ideas I have this home is you can put 3D printers in the basement and make stuff yourself. I believe we need to distribute manufacturing as much as possible and get away from centralized stuff as much as is possible. You would still have an internet connecting everything. There's still going to be some centralization, communications, and things like that. But I believe as much as possible, we should decentralize things. We need to localize things. I tell people to vote with their dollar and buy things local. We would have the ultimate local in our communities, Rex. And what I have in mind here is a network of communities. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing and collecting this is to try to develop not just a community, but a network of communities throughout the country. We could trade between each other. And if you know where the other communities are, if you need to travel around and we're living in a time that's not safe, at least you would know where safe havens are along the way. We could help each other out in so many ways, trading between each other. And maybe we could even share people that when certain skill sets are needed from one place to another. That's why it's important to know what someone's skill sets are as much as possible. Now, everybody's not going to have necessarily critical skill sets, but it takes the broad spectrum of everything to make a community pull together and work. So it might be that you know how to sew. That's a very important skill set in a time like this. You can say, well, that's all I know is how to do this. Well, you know what? That's very critical in a time like this. You're not going to have factories that's going to be putting out your clothing anymore. You're going to have to make your own. You might get by for tens of years repairing clothing and materials and refitting and repurposing things like that to a point till everything just wears out. But that's a strong possibility. Now, as you said earlier, we really want to avert the bad stuff. I really hope that we can. And I do believe that we have a strong prospect for that. But if we fail, at least we have a far better chance of surviving. And if these bad things we talk about never come to pass, I will be happy as a clown, because I would like to maintain society and have a productive future. I would like to have a hopeful future with freedoms, of course. And one thing we can do is communities is we can ask and demand that we maintain our freedoms. But all that said, Rex, I really believe that here's the thing, if these things don't come to pass, people go, oh, you did all this, what'd you do it for? What you're going to have is you're going to have a beautiful community with people that are close-knit, living closer to nature. They're going to live close to the food they grow. They're going to be eating healthier. So they're going to be healthier people. They'll be wiser people. You will have the friendship, the camaraderie-ship of your community, your family, your extended family, your neighbors. It will be unlike what we experience today where you don't know your neighbors. It will be a beautiful experience, Rex, wherever yet. We can take any place and turn it into a beautiful, flowering human community. That is the dream. That is the vision. So whether it hits the fan or not, I don't think you could get any better than this. Having a place that you're living in harmony with nature, where you're putting no footprint out into the environment, in essence, where you have each other, you'll have more free time, maybe hopefully to do arts and crafts and be expressive, creative. I think it would be an ultimate beauty, Rex, to live in harmony with nature. I just think it would be such a rewarding experience. Growing your own food, the experience of that, Rex, it would be a beautiful, beautiful community, and I believe each home should be built as a piece of art.
Yeah, and each home should have the opportunity as well to have, like you said, the 3D printers, so you can decentralize manufacturing. You can have some type of energy grid system where you're getting solar, you're getting wind, you've got a water filtration system, you've got some type of well system. Your front yard is filled with food instead of just grass that you're going to mow anyway. But I was going to talk about a couple of things that I think, man, I need to go back here. So another thing that's important, let's say we've got these networks that are around the country, right? And you could have drivers as well. So if for some reason you couldn't get supplies, or if the post office or if UPS or FedEx wasn't running, then you've got that option. And then also I think it's important to have a communication system where if the internet goes down, you can communicate as well. And then another thing, like you said, we've got the food, the food option. So food, water, clean water, clothing. What else? So laboratories. And then we need to start doing like experiments with some of this, like, I don't want to call it free energy, but different types of energy. And
maybe we'd have our own Bitcoin or something like that, our own currency. That'd be interesting.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Maybe we could have our own version of Bitcoin or something like it, our own currency.
Get him. No, you can't talk that way.
We come up with Bitcoin. It just happened, right?
Oh, you can't do that. No, that would be interesting to have some type of coin that you could offer that was connected to something of significance. But it's really just taking back your own independence, right? So Independence Day is coming up. What is independence to you? Well, if independence to you is not having to go to the store to buy something because you could produce it yourself somehow. But another thing too, for people that are in apartments, right? Vertical farming. Talk about that, because you've gone and visited people that live in expensive places in California that they're living comfortably out of a small location in their house because of somehow they can produce this much food and sell it back.
Well, I went and visited their DeVace family. The DeVace family on 1/10 of an acre produces enough food that they were originally feeding 4 adults. The father died, but they had 3 adult children there. They're still there. And I visited them twice back when the father was alive. And I was there when you and I were in LA back in December. And they grow their food, everything except the grains that they eat, on 1/10 of an acre in their backyard, feeding 3 adults. And they sell from there, Rex. They sell the excess from that, and they make a living and support themselves from that small property. So that is why I scaled my habitat to have a surface area of 1/10 of an acre. But I'm using roof space, so I'm putting in a smaller area than what they did. Now, you could also grow in the basement. You can grow in the living room. I can grow microgreens inside of my house. I can grow more food than I can eat on just a shelf or two, Rex. And it's amazing how much food you can grow in microgreens. And you might say, Greg, what about all the seeds? It takes all the seeds. Yeah, we'll just put some potted plants out, and plants produce prodigious amounts of seeds. So there's ways to do that. But, even people living in high rises. There is a guy in Baltimore who raises microgreens in a bedroom in his apartment. He's got an upstairs apartment in Baltimore, and he sells $100,000 gross sales per year in one zip code, Rex. Just one zip code. He don't go outside that because he's got all the business he can handle. He's hit his comfort level in that zip code, and it's all right there, fingers length away from him, so you don't have to travel much to serve his market. Of course, he's in a city. But that's just the power of what can be done there's so many things you can do to make a living, even with, if we were in a lockdown situation. That's one of them. I did some videos. I was starting to address that, but the lockdowns kind of got lifted, so I kind of stopped that. But, I started, I thought, well, I could do gardening, but everybody gets Greg's gardener. Everybody expects me to do a gardening video. So I surprised them. I came out instead with a video on a courier service. Because courier service, I said, that's going to be really in demand. This is something a guy from the city can do. I thought, what could somebody do that's in the city other than growing stuff, which was what everybody expected me to cover. So instead I did the courier service. And quite frankly, there was a huge need for that. And couriers did really well in this lockdown situation. And they're still doing well. There's always a demand for couriers. There always has been, always will be. And it was even more intense at that point in time. So that's always a good option to look into. You just got to be creative and ask yourself the following questions. Where are the needs? What do people want? What's not being filled? And what can I do? And when you find an intersection there, then you've got an opportunity.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Check this out, Greg. So 3D printers for technology and biology, a laboratory, work on GMO foods that are actually better for you, not worse for you, like the opposite. Vertical gardening, organic farming. We need people that can write good code. We need people that know artificial intelligence. We need people that know deep learning. This is what I see as now and the future, as well as technology, nanotechnology for the laboratory, and then servers that will hold all this information. Now we need blueprints for community, even the phones, right? So we need 3D printers that could print up phones at the capacitor level, at the chip level. We need EMF protection. So we're going to need laboratories that are completely protected from EMFs harm, like an EMP or a solar flare or something of that significance. We need to work on frequency manipulation. There's so many frequencies around us right now that I think we could figure out a way to not only harness and use as a battery source, but also maybe change that frequency somehow. Something kind of like it. You've got a receiver, it's picking up a signal, it's producing a certain amount of watts. But what if we can find something that can pick up all this energy, condense it, and then send it back? Also, I think that in the future for big cities, towns, etc., you could have malls. If the malls are empty, you could turn those into really cool communities and really cool growing facilities. Factories, buildings, strip malls, and skyscrapers. So if there's skyscrapers out there, they could be retrofitted to amazing grid, entire a miniature city could be in some of these.
Okay, Rex, think about this, Rex. Okay, you're right in that you could use the rooftops of a lot of stores and factories that are actually in use. The roofs usually are not used. You can turn that roof into a growing area and grow an amazing amount of food on the roof. You can there's a lot of factories today that are in disuse, and a lot of them are getting torn down. These could be repurposed. They're tearing malls down. They just tore a big mall down here close to me, and I thought that was a real pity that they tore that down, because it could have been reused and repurposed for something else. So these are things that can be done. But moreover, Rick, think about this. If you got the kind of habitat I'm talking about, where you can make a living in it, where you grow your food in, you don't need to travel as much. You're not driving to work every day. And suddenly you've got vast numbers of people that aren't driving to work every day. There's two radical changes that take place. One, the office space is no longer required. You don't need office space anymore. So all these buildings that are office space can be repurposed for other things, growing areas, community centers, future homes. You don't need all the office space. You could totally repurpose all of that. Another thing and I believe we should green the cities. People need greenery. They need nature. Nature is important for your psychological balance. There's something called a nature bath. You go out in nature and you get a renewal that refreshes your mind, your soul, and your spirit that you don't get in a concrete jungle. Well, start letting the vines crawl up that concrete. We green the cities. I think that's a very important thing. I'm green Gregs. I want to green the cities, and I want to green the cosmos. I'm Galactic Greg too, I want to green the cities. I want to green the cosmos. I want to green the world. Let's make it a better place. And I believe we can. We can make this world so much more vibrant, so much more exciting, so much more interesting. And we shouldn't have to be, if we sit here and just feud among ourselves, we're going to burn it all down into a cinder. We've got to learn to get along to survive as a species. That's the critical thing for survival.
30-day no mainstream news challenge.
There you go.
Seriously, think about that, Greg. 30
Yeah.
days, no mainstream news. How much would that change things? Because people wouldn't have their heads spun watching the media push their buttons.
Wow, no. This is, if we could start this as a movement, Rick, think of it. We should start this as a movement, try to get it to go viral. You know why? It would disenfranchise the news. They would know suddenly that, oh, we messed up. We've been feeding people all this crap, and they don't want to hear it anymore, and they're turning us off. And so what happens? They're advertising us, zip, it's gone. And because nobody's watching, and they're going to be in big trouble. They're going to have to do a reset. Uh-oh, I love it.
I was just going to say, and guess what? If we do the no mainstream news challenge for 30 days, you also have to stay away from the alternative news that's picking up off the mainstream news that's pushing a doomy agenda. Now, I mean, it's always, if you want to look up the news for something that's happy, or you're looking up nanotechnology or science or something cool, great. But, don't fall into that politic agenda where they're trying to push you into going out and doing something you're going to regret, where they turn you into controlled opposition. Take 30 days. Now think about it. If we take 30 days and do this, they would have to go to your door, Greg, to tell you what was going on because you weren't watching it on TV. So how bad is the world if you're not watching on TV? You're not going to know about it unless they're knocking on your door.
Okay, Rex, here's the deal. It's the end of June. We got the whole month of July to promote this idea. So let's really launch this campaign on the 4th of July and promote it all month long. And the object is through the whole month of August, you just do not go to the mainstream news media for anything. And guess what? That might just take all the wind out of the October surprise right there.
And that's the biggest form of magic that they have. That is the biggest piece. That is what they use to fuel the fire. And that is what topples nations. That is what manipulates generations. So either let them continue to use you as their Borg piece, or think for yourself and remember, independence is yours if you choose to accept it.
That's like when I tell you that the dollar is your most important vote, but your watching is also a vote, because when you watch something, that's where the advertisers go. They go to what's being watched. If suddenly nobody is watching the mainstream news media, holy smoke, they're going to be hurting. They're going to be chomping at the bit to get rid of alternate media. But suddenly everybody's coming to other places to find out what's going on. And, we do tell people about things to watch out for. And it sounds scary, but you and I and our sister and brother channels, we're out here telling people, grow your food, start a garden. I'm telling people, hey, write me at hal5space@aol.com. We're going to start a community network, a network of tribes, survival tribes. And by the way, I put in information about contacting your congressman, how to contact the president, contact your public services commissions. It's active. What to do to make sure that we can ensure things, that we can continue. I've done videos about the fragility of our society so people understand just how fragile it is. I did a video called A Nuke in Every Pot, so you could really get the idea of just what small groups will be able to do in the future and why we have to learn to get along in society. I do videos talking, the rose-colored glasses video is so you can understand where other people are coming from so that you can appreciate that. And we can reach out. And I've told people to reach out across the aisle and try to establish peace. Now, that it may start, we still may wind up with our cities getting burnt down, but it won't be because we didn't try. But at least those amongst us that are awake and working toward this, we will be able to form our communities and live in some form of security. But we don't have time to waste. We got to get moving with it, Rex. And this is this idea you've got. We got to really get on top of it. But I love this 30-day no mainstream media challenge. Rex, that's a brilliant idea. I'm willing to promote that with you, and let's get our sister channels to promote it, and let's get it to go viral, because that's a most excellent idea, Rex. And it started, ladies and gentlemen, it started right here tonight.
Well, man, I appreciate that, because I brought it up a few times before, and some people have been asking me, like, Rex, when are we actually going to start it? Is there an official date? And when you brought up the 4th of July, I thought to myself, that's perfect. But I want to go back also, because there's a few people, well, I don't know how many, I mean, 3 or more, because there's actually been several people that have left in the comment section that they're actually doing the 30-day challenge that I brought up before. I just didn't put a specific date on it. And they said they're feeling so much better. Like they physically feel better.
Dude, I don't watch it.
Well, that's why you look so good. And dude, you look like Gandalf the Grey. You do. Gandalf the Grey is a boss, man. That guy, you remember when he's like, "Thou shalt not pass." Boom. And this entire freaking mountain falls and this giant dragon's like, you're a boss, bro. There's a reason you're a rocket scientist.
Or I just walk down the tunnel and yell, "Hello!" And what happens, Rick?
That was wild, man. I'll tell you. No, yeah, that's right. I said Hugh or something. You went halo or halo, and this light thing goes, and that was in the tunnel. That tunnel is mad. We went out there. I actually figured out what we did when we went out there. We reversed some dark spell or something. We actually cleaned energy out there. I didn't realize it until about a month ago. I was brainstorming, and something told me, it's like, you and Greg went out there because you guys cleansed some dark energy out there, man. And it just came to me. So.
And I was talking about Marty McFly. When we get back to the hotel, you give me a Marty McFly hat. Wow. And now I'm wearing it. What a time to change into my Marty McFly hat.
That's a good looking hat.
Light, the emanation of light. But that tells us we have a soul. We have a spirit, Rex, and we can take on the darkness. There's darkness about us. The way you get darkness to flee is you turn on the light. And I have told people this in the meditation sessions I had. I tell them, shine your light to the world. And where's your light? It's from your love. Shine your love to the world. And this is how we can take it on, Rex. This is how we dispel the darkness. We've got to get out there with the love and express the love and share that and shine that.
And if you don't want something, say, "No, thank you. You're going to take this." No, thank you.
And there's certain things that I have no intention of taking.
Yeah. No, thank you.
And you know who Gandalf was based on, don't you?
Probably Merlin, the mage. Odin. But he did have both of his eyes, didn't he? In the movie?
Oh, yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah. Now, Odin, wow, what an amazing God, human turned God. You know the name human? I actually deciphered that. Hugh, man, God, man. Hugh is the word of God. Hugh, man, is God, man. No wonder there's something out there that doesn't want us to reach our full potential, Greg.
What were you chanting in the tunnel?
Hugh.
And what is Hugh?
The word of God.
It is. It's 432 hertz. It's the, if I get it right, it's the A note. And it just happens to be my middle name.
Yeah, I know. Man, hair's standing up right now on my forehead. Well, Mr. Greg Hugh Allison, let's finish this off with a light, happy note. And I want to let everybody know that we want to help people. We want to bring people up. This is, we're just talking. We're giving ideas, opinions. This is a live action role-playing game. This is for entertainment purposes only. Let's work on helping each other out, folks. Let's be excellent to each other.
Amen. Rex, let's do this. Let's think about, if you're listening to this show, and if you want to start a community, especially if you've got some money burning a hole in your pocket and you really want to invest in the community, then we have a concept. Rex, maybe can I share my habitat? Just show a quick.
Yeah.
You have to enable me to do that. Tell me when you give me that. I will pull up my chart here. Just show it briefly. I'm not going to make a presentation. I just want to show people what it looks like. Let me know when I can do that. They've changed Zoom. It used to be so much easier to use.
I don't know, man. I'm looking. Showing you can share. I don't see the. I don't.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
I don't know, man.
Didn't used to do that. Anyway, well, they changed their software, so we can't play as much as we used to.
Golly. No, because I've got the share screen. I click on that and it says one participant can share at a time. That's what's clicked. Let me try this. Multiple participants can share simultaneously. Try it now. See if that'll work.
Okay, maybe that's it. Okay, very good.
All right. Now this is your content, right?
Right. This is my content, my drawing that I created.
Oh, look at that, man. It's awesome.
Let me bring it up to show it full screen here. Hang on a minute. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you just look at it?
All right, Rex. This is the concept here, and the surface area of this across the top is 1/10 of an acre to match their DeVace family. And I did 2 videos on their DeVace family, by the way, and we did them while you and I were out doing this show. You might want to mention that show before we get done, because people probably want to see it. But I got us growing on the roof and down here in the courtyard. And I've actually increased the area by growing in tubes fed by an aquaponics system right above the courtyard. I've got a garage workshop. This is garage workshop, indoor grow area, store, factory, whatever you want to do with it, club, 3D printer shop. That has over 2,000 square feet in it. So it's a lot of room to do stuff. Your living area has over 2,000 square feet in it. And you've got area here for solar arrays. You've got a berm of earth. You know, you could seek this thing where it can be all the way underground or have it partially underground, depending on the hydrology of your local area, how well it drains. If it's
Could you get thermal from this?
What?
Could you get thermal from this?
Yeah, the walls would be thick enough to do that. I plan for the walls to be at least 18 inches thick. Probably 2 foot would be better. And you're going to have earth covered over much of the roof too, to increase the thermal mass. So the thermal mass is an essential key piece of this. Now you could put a greenhouse roof over it if you so choose. And yeah, I penciled that in because I didn't want to dictate what type of roof that would be and how you would do that. But you could vent it and pull cold air through the ground like they do with earthship houses, and to cool the inside when you want to do it that way. Or you could accumulate the heat. If you so choose, you could collect the rainwater off this area. That's a lot more rainwater collection area than the earthship houses use. So you would have if you were in a desert, you'd have more water than you need. And aquaponics is especially conservative for growing water. I got you growing on the wall here. Now, Rex, you and I need to go to Mars one day, because I got a Mars habitat I want to show you in a simulation called Kitely. So we need to do that in a session real soon.
You're on.
So everybody stay tuned. Rex and I are going to Mars.
That's what I'm talking about.
If this is like your kitchen, bathroom area over here, you'd have a solar hot water heater probably on the outside, although it could be mounted in here if you want to not expose it outside. But it's the intention is you keep that closer so you don't lose the thermal from it. And this is your solar electric. You're not going to require a lot of electricity, because all you're going to do is run some lights, maybe a refrigerator, possibly a range, which you might use gas for that too. And you could use biogas, recycling some of your other waste. You could, there's much that we could work on development with this. It'd be nice to have a laboratory just for this type of home. I've got a place to build one out here on the backside of my place, a prototype for this, and that's what I'm aiming to do, unless somebody comes along and makes me a better offer that we can go in and develop this into communities. Yeah, you could take an existing house and come over the top of it and build a roof that's got a lot of thermal mass to it, sandbag the walls, enclose a courtyard around your yard, and put berms around. You could do this with an existing home, Rex, and it don't have to look just like this. The key thing is that you have growing area, you have thermal mass, and things like that. You could also get cooling from the ground if you put a greenhouse over it and vent it, so that when it's venting out, you're pulling cool air in. Or you could put thermal loops to the ground and use the ground as a solar battery and pump air if you wanted to. But you could do it with no power. You can do it totally passively. And I've got a passive solar pump hot water heater for my aquaponics greenhouse. So I've got experience building these kind of things like this. And I'll be going into solar electric in the not too distant future. I've done aquaponics for years. So these are things that we could definitely do, Rex. And we could retrofit buildings to have a lot of these design principles in it. But this is just look, 2,000 square foot, Rex, you could do all kind of things. And it's way bigger that you can just take a little piece of it a very small piece of this to do what that guy in Baltimore does for growing microgreens inside, in addition to all you're growing out here. Or if you weren't adept at wanting to grow things, you didn't have a green thumb, then you could do those 3D printer grow bots. You could put up a loom in here. You could put a spinning machine. You could put 3D printers. You could put a server farm in here. You could put, whatever you can imagine in terms of a business, because 2,000 square feet is a lot of area. I mean, this whole thing is 4,306 feet basically across here, because an acre is 43,560 feet. So this is a tenth of an acre, Rex. So that's the whole idea here. You see, I drew this right before LeakCon in terms of trying to make a little better drawing out of what I had. But the idea is that this would be the south side. The sun is shining in. I'm showing at a low angle here just to show you get penetration and how that could work. You could also paint the walls white for better penetration. This is the more narrow version. It's actually longer going in and out of the page because this is a hexagon. I could have done it if I did it as a circle. You would have actually more area this way, and the less of it would be in the shadow. So this is probably, in terms of shadow, low sun angle, the worst way to do it. You could do these things rectangular. You can make them circles, octagons, however you want to build. This is a hexagon type, a six-sided structure concept that I had here when I did this. I could show, but that's a lunar version with water over the head for radiation shielding. This is showing you the basic geometry I was drawing that from. And this is like a square one. Rex, you could take these things and you could put these at corners of a compound, or you can line a whole wall in. You could have a whole compound where these are along the walls. You got an open courtyard in the center. It would be a fortress. You could have a community fortress made out of homes like this. You could even on the outside put ISO shipping containers for extra shielding and storage and protection from things that you want to be protected from. Then you could put an earth berm over that and dig foxholes in it if you so chose. This is the idea of putting the hexagons together in a honeycomb fashion. This is the idea of putting them out at sea, and there's a lot of stuff in here, Rex. A lot we could do with this. Oh, that's from the Kitely Sim, by the way. That's my Martian habitat. So we'll have to go there one day, Rex. And that's my avatar inside of it.
Nice.
So
just look at it.
Let me stop the share here. We'll get out of this because that's enough of that for now. But look, we can have a beautiful vision. You could take it where you use different colored bottles in the structure. We can let in light, make it extremely artistic. I think it should be a very artistic creation. I think everyone should be individualized and make it beautiful. Don't make it some utilitarian cookie cutter thing. I mean, if you really want to do, you could, but that would be kind of boring. I think we need to be expressive. We need to be artistic. We can make it beautiful. We grow plants in it. Everyone would be like a snowflake, individualized to the people that live in it, their taste. And my dream is a home that would be so beautiful, that would be so economical, so resilient to things hitting us, so low impact on the environment. And if we get it right, we can make it low cost to build. The earthship homes are mainly expensive because the labor required to pound dirt and tires. I don't need tires here. You can use them if you want to, and you can do that. But you can do it in sandbags, or you can 3D print concrete walls, Rex. That's something that we can do already today. And either way is good for this, because you're just looking for thermal mass. I'm not going to be a dictator and say you got to build this way or that way. It's according to what makes sense for you economically, how much labor do you have. If you got communities of people working together, they can go around and build these homes for everybody, and you don't have the labor costs, and the materials are essentially nothing. I mean, they could be relatively cheap if everybody's willing to work together like that. I mean, we could go into a place, if we got a community of people who's willing to work hard, we could build homes for everybody just for the cost of essentially garbage. Reuse tires and things like that, and maybe some concrete. It would be very economical. The utilities would be essentially nothing. Actually, it would be nothing. We could actually sell electricity, you suggested, or use to mine Bitcoins or tribe coins, or whatever you want to call it. TP coins.
Rocket coins.
Rocket coins. So
dude, this has been awesome, Greg.
The possibilities are limitless, Rex. It's whatever you want to do, whatever we can dream of, whatever our hearts and minds can aspire toward. So rather than us all, feuding with each other. Let's get together and work together and build a beautiful future. Let's quit listening to powers that be that want to arraign us against each other. We cannot survive as a society if we go down that route. See my video, and you can never plot. I'm explaining it there. You don't know how fragile we are and what trouble we get into if we go down that road. See my video about the fragility of modern society. Now, those are probably not in the playlist, or if they are, the playlist is so long they've dropped off of finding my videos. Go click videos in the upper left-hand corner of my screen and scroll down and define these. But Rex, we can do so much. And oh, by the way, everyone, Rex is going to have an interview with Dr. Peter Price. See my interview. It's 2.5 hours. It's jam-packed with information. Look, I'm an electrical engineer. I work system safety. So Peter and I have a certain rapport. We've both been doing power grid defense for years. Rex, you've got your own style, your own personality. You're going to ask him a lot of interesting questions that from a totally different angle. So everyone needs to watch Rex when he interviews Peter Vincent Fry. Dr. Fry is a very interesting guy. It's going to be an awesome interview. I look forward to seeing your interview with him, Rex. I absolutely will watch it 100%. And I tell everyone to promote that video and share these videos widely. It's going to be really interesting. We're trying to build a community. We're trying to change the world in a positive way.
That's what I'm talking about.
We want a better world. We want a better world. Shiny world, bright, shiny world. It's got a lot of green in it. And that's the dream.
Shiny green. Shiny lime green. Oh, man. In Colorado.
Heard about the shiny city on the hill. How about the shiny hat on the knob?
Yeah, right on. And on that note, I also wanted to say, folks, make sure to check us out over on Patreon. Check us out at leakproject.com as well. Hit that bell so you'll get all the notifications. And I was going to say one more thing, and then I lost track because Greg.
Mention our video, Rick.
That's what it was. Yep, that's what I was going to mention. Thank you. See, I knew it. Odin, is that you? So this is it, folks. Weird Earth. Weird Earth on Weather Channel, 9 p.m. Eastern, Sunday nights. You'll see Greg. You'll see myself featured in several episodes. We were on last night, and that was fun to see us talking with Jose.
Yeah, Jose was his first time. I can't remember his last name.
He's a cool guy. He's a pilot. He's a comedian. He's a veteran, I think, as well, right?
Yes.
Good guy. Real. And actually, we need to get him on the podcast. We could all talk.
Oh, we'd have so much fun with him.
They make fun of me, though, but that's okay. Everybody else does, too, so.
We had so much fun with him. We all three hit it off big. Jose is a fighter pilot. He was in the Air Force. He's not active duty Air Force. He's an Air Force reserve now. He's still a fighter, but he's a comedian and a really good comedian. You see this guy, you would never imagine this guy was a fighter pilot or a fighter of any type. He just seemed so soft and funny. You would never believe it, but he's bright, smart, and funny as it comes. And we all three of us had such a good time together. It was unbelievable. So I highly encourage everyone to watch this series.
Yeah, and it's a good series. I watched the episode last night, man, from front to back. Actually, it's funny because I was actually doing something at like 7:20, and that would be 9:20 Eastern time. So I was doing something at 7:20, and I looked at my emails, and somebody said Rex and Greg on TV. How cool! And I was like, oh wait, they're watching us on the Weather Channel right now. So people were watching us on the Weather Channel, sending us emails, or me an email saying, hey man, I saw you and Greg on there, and because of you, I had the opportunity to go out there. And folks, we're going to finish this up right now because this is like 8 hours of talking today. And my vocal cords need some Super T and C60. Did you get your C60? Did you get C60?
I got to get a refill now.
Oh, you're taking it. Good. Let's take a shot together, bro. Let's
do a toast.
I got to mix it up. Mix the lime and the coconut. So, dude, I'm taking so many supplements. I'm taking like collagen. I'm taking keto. I'm taking Super T. I'm taking Gladiator barley. That's Gladiator barley. So I'm taking this Gladiator barley stuff. I'm taking the 60. So that's one of the perks of Leak Project is I get all the best products. It's amazing.
Let's have a toast of bright, shiny future. Oh, by the way, if anybody wants the sheriff and the mayor, talk to Rex now.
Code Leak 10, 10% off. Cheers, brother. Love you, man.
Cheers.
Yeah. Woo! So wing. All right.
Hey, hello.
C60purplepower.com. Code Leak 10. Thank you to Ken Swartz for sending those out.
Thank you, Ken. Absolutely. Thank you, Ken.
And next time we talk as well, Greg, maybe we could get you, me, and Lee on the podcast.
Oh, that would be cool.
Cool.
That would be awesome. I'd love to get on with Lee. He's an interesting guy. But you and I got to go to Mars one day soon, Rex.
Soon, bro. I'm ready.
Soon. I'm ready to go to Mars.
Moab, then Mars, or Mars, then Moab. They're the same thing pretty much. There's just a little bit more air in Moab, and you can Jeep
Yes,
out
more
there.
air. More air.
The Rover isn't the only four-wheel drive vehicle there. All right, everybody. Be the change you want to see.
Thank you, everyone.